Hey everybody, Esprit here, and today we're going to be talking Dragon Ball TCG. But before I get to that, you might have noticed a little bit of change right behind me. I just recently got a green screen, so sorry if I'm going to be fiddling with that for the next couple of videos, try and see if it works out and how to set it up. But this is going to be a work in progress, and hopefully with this kind of setup, I'll be able to produce higher quality videos. So if you have any recommendations or any critique about how this setup is, just let me know down below. So today we're going to talk about bans and restrictions. So Bandai just announced that we are having a brand new ban list with 2 additional bans and 1 brand new errata, which is actually a lot more changes than I was actually expecting. So let's just go down the different cards, see what cards were impacted, and what that means for the meta, for deck building, and all that. So first off, Child's Wish is banned. And this is actually very much in the realm of what I was expecting to see. I, of course, was advocating for an errata that maybe wouldn't burn a lot of different decks that weren't as intense as Super Shenron, so like veggies or a lot of different colored Shenron variants were relying on it. But nope, straight up 0, and I understand why. Joey from Crossroad TCG made a video not long ago testing out how it would look like if Child's Wish was once per turn. And not just Child's Wish actually, but any desire card. So you could only cast Child's Wish once, you could only use Personal Ambition once, and even in that video, he was able to very cleanly go off. Now, naturally, it wouldn't be as insane as going off, 3-4 Child's Wishes in one turn. But like I said in my own Banned Limited video, it is still incredible the amount of value you can get just from one free Child's Wish, let alone a string of them all at once. So while it is a shame that we do hit rogue decks with this, I do think that it's better for the health of the game, because Child's Wish means that anytime we create a 3-drop, anytime that Bandai creates a 3-drop or less, then we need to consider that, okay, well, it needs to be more than 15k, so that's not targetable. So either that card needs to now be hyper restrictive so that it can't just be generically good in any Super Shenron deck, or any other Shenron deck for that matter, but we need to always consider that, okay, maybe this card can't be made this way simply because it needs to be brought back with Child's Wish. And then we need to consider whether that card has to now be a 16 to 19k, if not more, just so that it can't be hit with Child's Wish. And that actually has some form of ramifications in that on offense, I'm effectively attacking for 15 because my opponent's going to have to get to 20 anyways. But defensively, my opponent's going to have to commit another combo just to get over that 16 to 19k threshold. So there's a lot holding back the game design-wise with Child's Wish in the game. And that's not even why they took it out. They just recognized that while you're constantly looping things like Preface of Recovery or Bulma, that you're just getting way too much value out of it. Granted, I am a little surprised that there was no mention of maybe just banning the Bulma and the Preface. I personally believe that that's beating around the bush, and at the end of the day, we're just going to constantly get back to this issue. But it is a little surprising because this does hurt a lot of decks. Maybe not in the meta, but in terms of definitely locals, it's going to hurt a lot of different decks that people are running. However, I think this ban by itself cleanly solves the issues we're having with the format. That said, though, there's another ban, and we're losing Bardock the Progenitor. Yes, the almighty 1-drop linear 10k attacker that also self-awakens and free swaps into a 2-drop. And I understand why. For the longest time now, Bardock has always been in the heart of some type of degenerate strategy. Whether it was Hirudegarn Storm, or it was Super Shenron Storm, and then they banned Goten, and then Storm was still a viable deck. It so cleanly helps out Lineage become a entirely fleshed out archetype in comparison to everything else that it makes sense that they decided that they needed to do something about it. In terms of aggro decks, you always have the option of just aggroing down your opponent having two attackers, a 10k and a 15k attacker for his effectively one energy, as well as reusable self-awakening. It's a lot of flexibility. And then when you consider that a deck like Height of Mastery, not even just Super Shenron Height of Mastery, but, Height of Mastery at all, that deck is definitely linear. You're trying to get your path to greatness to get to Height of Mastery. But the power of where Bardock is that for free, you can effectively pivot into an aggro position if the matchup calls for it. So because you can for free switch up your strategy without really having to give that much consideration into the build-up of your deck, at that point you really have an archetype that is all-encompassing. So for that reason, I think at the end of the day, they just decided that Bardock has been too much to deal with and we should just get rid of it. And that's a shame. Obviously, it feels bad for people who would want to get it for, Ape's deck, because now the 4-drop Bardock Ape, that's not really usable until we get a new one. And really, at the end of the day, I think Lineage was just too powerful from the get-go because there were so many pieces contributing to a entirely fleshed out archetype. So this means that Height of Mastery is going to be more linear, and if anything is going to be easier to deal with and not as flexible in what the game plan is trying to do. So whereas I think it's overkill, I don't think Bardock was at the heart of all the issues we were having with the format right now. It's a fair consideration when we think about what the card used to do and what it still does, since we've had so many different bans and silver bullets to try and just deal with the strategy that never really got there. Finally, Super Shenron Errata. Whereas it used to say that you need to use 20 cards to take your extra turn, now you need 30 battle cards. And honestly, at the end of the day, this makes the deck unusable. They might as well have just banned Super Shenron, because at this point, that skill is just so hard to get off. When I was playing Super Shenron, I found myself, 5 to 3 cards in deck with like 22 cards in my drop, while still having a somewhat healthy life total and, a hand. Nothing huge. Like, my hand was never massive, but it had a decent amount of cards that I wanted to keep, either for combo power or just to extend plays. So now we don't even get the ability to use free cards to get there, like Personal Ambition, because those just don't tally up to the total. But even just getting to 30 bare bones means that you would have to give up so much of your hand in the first place to even get to 30, let alone the fact that you need to get there with 30 battle cards. When we consider that you have, let's say, 3 to 4 energy on board, potentially 4 life, 2 to 3 cards on the board, and 5 cards in hand, you are really going to struggle to get 30 cards into your drop. Now add on to the fact that it's 30 battle cards, and it's just straight up impossible. Unless you are self-milling so intensely hard with a battle card that you can get there, I really don't think that Super Shenron is viable anymore. And at this point, I think they should have just banned it. But we aren't seeing it anymore. I can guarantee right here, right now, that we are not going to see Super Shenron for a long time. The only thing that would help Super Shenron come back is if somehow a battle card only centric archetype shows up, in which the cards can generically fit into Super Shenron and causes a lot of self-mill. Otherwise, the ability is just too intense to get to. And that's really where the balance has to lie with extra turns. It is really hard to balance extra turns properly, especially in a game where we have commanders like Super Shenron where they're accessible at all times. This is tipped all the way to the under end where it is just unusable, as opposed to where it was slightly difficult beforehand. I'm sure at some point Bandai will try again with the extra turn thing and maybe get it a little bit closer to the middle, but that balance is really the hardest thing to do when it comes to something like extra turns. So we're not going to see Super Shenron anymore, or any other offshoot Child's Wish decks, because now this killed, or it very significantly slowed down Agents of Destruction Dende. And it killed anything like veggies, and the Super Shenron plan with Height of Mastery or Storm could have been done with any Shenron deck. Super Shenron just did it best. But we could have realistically seen, if it was just Super Shenron banned, that a regular Shenron deck would do it. And then your finisher, instead of being an extra turn, is relying on one-year attackers to attack 3 times in 1 turn. All in all, it's just cleanly out of the way, but a lot got hit in the crossfires of trying to clean up the format. So, what will be the meta moving forward then? Well, that means we're probably going to see a comeback of Janemba. Because you're not being rushed down so intensely, it's easier to defend yourself. The game has slowed down a little bit. The green Broly BR deck was very intense before the release of Set 6 and was posting up some really good results. And I think that's just going to continue to be a powerful deck. A lot of people are banking on that. Vanillaku, at the time we were seeing decks at like 40% representation in tournaments. And I don't think that's going anywhere. The deck is easy to build. It's not all that expensive. And really, it has so many different ways that you can build it that it's pretty appropriate in terms of seeing some number in the format. Finally, a lot of people are banking on the 7-drop Gogeta. And I don't personally agree with that. I think before Set 6, the deck really wasn't doing all that much. While, yes, it's powerful, the whole strategy of having a triple strike, triple attack, critical, with like a million keywords in 1 turn to try and kill your opponent while they only have 3 cards in hand, huge. But we know how to play against it now. We understand what that deck does and how to not just auto lose to it. And I think this was realized before Set 6 ever showed up. So while I think it's powerful, and I'll probably see a resurgence because, you know, slower turns means that we have more of a chance to get there, I just don't see it happening. I'm open to being surprised. I'm putting that out right there. I'm open to being surprised. I just don't think it's going to get there personally. And finally, the last thing to realize is that we don't need to main deck super hard against it anymore. You know, not every deck is going to have to consider their Borgos variant or main deck Black Mass Saiyan. Although I think I've realized that there's a lot of uses for that card, so maybe it's useful to keep them instead of your typical Colored Awakening card, but it's not required. So at the end of the day, it's a lot more freeing. And like I said on my last Banned and Limited video, I think it'll be very refreshing for the format. And I think we are going to be headed into something that is very healthy. At least until the multicolor cards come and, I don't know, maybe they'll fuck that up. Alright, well, that's the video. That's basically what's up and up with the Banned and Limited list and my opinions on what we're going to see from then on. But what do you think? Leave me a comment below letting me know. And feel free to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube-y things. And I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.